Hello, hello. I am Cheyenne Kramer, and I am so excited to be here today with a friend of mine who is just enthusiastic about sharing his story. And I think it's worthwhile that he shares that story because so many people have been through so many challenges, and some people get just plain stuck thinking they don't have any options. And my friend John Toomey is going to let you know that is not necessarily the case. So, welcome, John. So happy to have you here.
Oh, Cheyenne, I'm so grateful to be here. It's been a long time.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I told you up front that we'll try to keep this kind of succinct. So, the first question that I want to ask you, because this is my favorite question to ask everybody, is if you had a closet full of money that was never going to be run out, what would you be doing with your time?
That's an easy one. I would be, well, I would need to buy stuff because I've had plenty of stuff and that doesn't do anything. That never filled my soul up, my heart.
Mm-mm.
I would be create as many opportunities as possible to travel wherever may be to help those who suffer indiscriminately that believe that they don't have any choice, that there's any other way other than suffering. And at the end of the day, suffering is a choice, but a lot of people don't know that.
Mm-mm. That is true. Yeah, I heard somebody say recently, and I couldn't agree more. They said, we were born to win, but we're programmed to lose. And that's where a lot of people get stuck. They get stuck in that program that says you're a loser, you're a victim, you don't have any choices. But you, my friend, are absolutely proof that that's not necessarily the case, right?
Well, truer words have never been spoken because you know what? From what I know, this is not the world of the divine for sure. You know,
Mm,
but we do with the power of free will. But
yes.
people don't. Myself, most of my life, I didn't know that. One of my biggest issues was that I had lack of power. Was a dilemma I had my whole life.
Hmm.
And I know I've learned through my own power that things can be finite because there's nothing lasting about it. It's a it's a false sense of energy and power,
Mm,
and it basically just left me empty and broken for sure. You know.
wow. Wow. And there's so many things in our society that kind of emphasize that with people, and it's just not right. But tell people, if you're willing to share a little bit, what are some of the things from your story, your history, that have now made you say, I want to stand up and help more people realize the power they have?
Well, I grew up in you know what I guess termed as like a average American family, right? But it was influenced by a lot of the programs you mentioned. Okay,
Mm,
and but I will say the underlying current that was, and trust me, this stuff is is hard enough to change even when you're conscious of it. But a lot of times you're not conscious, they blind you on, they drive they drove me unconsciously into a lot of unhealthy behaviors, dysfunctional patterns. And I grew up in chaos and dysfunction. And a lot of it was fueled by unconscious programming, shame, abandonment, fear. But the program is, you know, if you escape childhood alive, but you know you're kind of barely breathing. And my whole life, I kind of like I was felt like I was treading water,
oh
right?
my.
Because for myself, I just had this inherent feeling of just like not being safe in the world. But the
Mm,
program teaches you whatever, get a college degree or get a trade, get a good job, and then it's like I see plenty of guys my age that may have had that, and at the end of the day, because of stress, fear, and all that stuff, if they've been lucky enough to attain any wealth, they end up spending it on their health. And the health, the healthcare system, there's no real answers there because I was like that and I was on like 10 different medications and now I'm not. I'm getting my energy back, my vitality, and I have a sense of purpose. And purpose is huge. And if you have an intention and purpose, it's everything because, where you place your attention, where you place your energy, right?
Mm,
Like I
yep.
see my guys, all they do is they fish and they golf. Well, I'm not into either of them. And how long can you do that? You know,
Oh,
I can't see doing that for 20, 25 years. Boom, I can't.
I totally get that. Totally get that. So were there specific incidences in your past that kind of shaped these beliefs about yourself?
Yeah, just a lot of chaos and behavior. Uh, the underlying thing of like not gonna talk about feelings or anything like that. And I stuffed a lot of stuff down, right? And
Mhm.
and and the only regrets I do have is the blaming my parents for a while. I was stuck on that
Mm,
that cycle of the blame game. And i.e. what follows that is like a victim mentality. And there's nothing empowering about a victim mentality, you know.
mm,
But I searched all over the place. I was in many 12-step programs for years. And
mm.
that that continuous energy of like lack and scarcity, it creates a cascade of toxic chemicals that'll actually pollute your system. And that's what happened to me. I got very, very sick, and
Wow.
I've had 17 surgeries, but the last,
Ooh,
I mean, going backwards, I don't say forward was a brain tumor, open heart surgery, prostate cancer, and back fusion. And
wow.
even though I knew a lot of that stuff, I mean, I think a lot of this stuff, me myself now, what I know is I knew I was going to get sick, but I was trapped in that cycle. And the programs go to doctors, get pills, and I mean, most people know you go to doctors, you just taking pills or slapping on band-aids.
Yep.
There's no real medicine. I mean, for like chronic fear and stress, other than
Yes.
my example, going outside and find a power which I could live, not survive. Okay.
Mhm.
And then what happened was I was able to reverse the immune system, so now it's being more empowered because the cortisol nephrepinephrine that's created from toxic thinking, it just destroys your health. And that was my story. But I just always
Wow.
knew that I was here. I was that I remember when I had my back surgery and I was walking my dog to the woods like 12 years ago.
Mhm.
I hear these like I thought in my head be like um a maximum a maximum what's it I had so many different things I'm forgetting it.
It's okay.
We're to be a maximum service to others. Okay.
Mm,
And I hear all these things. I'm like, what's that from? I'm like, I heard that when I was my early 20s when I went to AA meetings.
mm.
No, primary purpose to be of maximum service to others. Okay. It says
Ah,
lack of power is our dilemma. It says may you find God now if you want to live. Those are pretty drastic if you want to live
mhm.
because existing in survival is not living.
That's true.
And I kind of grew up in that pattern as my relatives and my family, they see that because it's a struggle because you're fear based, you're fear laden, and you know what? There's no sunlight in the spirit. Even if it's a beautiful day, every day is a dark day.
Yeah.
Or if it is decent, you put a mask on to cover it, to cover up, like everything's fine. And it wasn't fine. But it got me to such a state, living in that state for so long. And it's not for lack of knowledge, because I was searching and searching and searching for 45 years now. And I knew that. But like, I remember hearing this, I did this bunch of workshops, when we talked to Joe Dispenza, right? And he said, I remember saying one time, one of his things, do you believe your thoughts can make, didn't believe your thoughts made you sick? Do you believe your thoughts can make you well? Well, I totally agree with that. But that's like, from my experience, that's like trying to make a tight turn in the Titanic or a cruise ship. Because you're
Yes.
talking neural pathways that, like, I had a neural pathway for like shame, fear, guilt, remorse, regret, jealousy, the size of the Grand Canyon, right? But the one for love, joy, peace, you couldn't put a needle through because there wasn't one.
Hmm.
So now recreate that is trying to be grateful. And I was doing that work, but let me tell you, I tell people that half my age, look, it's a lot easier to maintain your health than trying to reverse it.
Mm,
Because I mean, there's a
true.
power there, but there's certain things you have to do that aren't easy.
Hmm. That is a
So,
fact. That is a fact. Wow. Holy cow. Well, was there a specific turning point for you? Either something that happened, an event you went to, or somebody you met that kind of helped to start to turn that cruise ship around for you?
you know, I've always known that. I shouldn't say always, but I checked in my true nature. He's near the a child. I had a like an intrinsic value that I cared about people, wanted to help people. So I always
Mhm.
knew that I was supposed to be doing something different that I was doing, you know. But it was like 50 years ago in a meeting, because a lot of those 12-step meetings talk about getting out of yourself and try to help other people and things like that. And I always did that. But as Wayne Dyer says, you can't give love if you don't have love, right?
True.
And I was immersed in some really dark, dark energy, like, and I
Oof.
believe a lot of that energy, like of self-hatred, self-loathing, it creates it creates an acidic state in your body, you know.
Mhm.
But and I've been to therapy, doctors, all that kind of stuff for decades, honestly. I know it's like, you know what? You have to totally change the person that you are. And how do you go in a toxic situation normally to react, but now you go into it and you maintain your state and you stay in a state of neutrality, even when there's chaos going on around you. Because
Mm.
I couldn't afford to go off my center. My body was so strapped. It was like I got off my center, I'd be like, I almost have to go home and take a nap because that little bit of stress would spin me down. That's how sick my body got.
Wow.
So just knowing that and like, you know what? I mean, it's a road less traveled for sure. Let me tell you, and it's very difficult. But you know what? And why my reason to say to people is like, I wouldn't be able to do it, have done this, if I didn't have an intention or purpose greater than myself to help other people.
True.
And God knows the world needs help. Everybody
Yes.
could use some little bit of light,
Yep.
you know.
Totally
So,
true, totally true, but you don't think there was some specific thing that happened, in your space that kinda helped you to start to make this shift?
oh yeah, without a doubt. I think for me it was like I just I don't want to say anything bad about my dad. He was the youngest of 9 kids. But I mean, when I
Mm,
had kids, I went to Barnes and Noble. That's how long it was because there was no Zoom, internet, anything like that. I was reading books on, child rearing stuff like that, and I just knew I had nothing to offer my kids because it was just, I had no information. Knowledge is power, and I didn't want to give
yes.
what I got because I got in the state because that's how I was conditioned. But it was really just a lot of it was because I was divorced, my kids were really young, and
Mhm,
I wanted to be the best dad that I could be,
gotcha.
and so they wouldn't have to live through the generational cycle that I went through. And you know, I mean,
Wow.
from what I understand today, this work of awareness and consciousness, it it goes 10 years past, 10 years prior, future generations to break the cycle of whatever ancestral carnage, for lack of a better word. So people
Wow.
can learn to live in the light. Because there was no light in my life for anyone that I knew. It was
Mm,
chaos. I mean, you hear through the windows in summertime, people yelling and screaming. It was just like nuts. But I
gotcha.
just knew I had to change all that stuff. And a lot of the 12-step uh, literature talks about that specifically. But like I said, it's
Mm,
a road less traveled because I've done plenty of like 12-step inventories and fear, resentment, and anger, those types of things. But it gave me a bunch of knowledge, but never any real power to change. You know.
mm,
So I don't know
gotcha.
if that answered your question, but so yeah,
Well,
it was being a better example, role model to my sons because I know I didn't have a lot to offer. So that's why I started learning, do workshops and programs and therapy and all those things. But that was the catalyst because I was like, to be honest, I didn't have enough self love to do it for myself. And that's
yeah.
sometimes just if you can do it, doesn't matter how you get there. Like I taught my son, doesn't matter how you start out, it's how you finish. You know,
Mhm.
and
That's
I
true.
don't mean even on a financial, economical. I mean more of a spiritual level.
Mhm.
You know,
I
and
gotcha. Uh,
yeah, I didn't have like much faith and trust because I was so shut down in my heart. 'Cause I lived up
mm.
here because it wasn't safe to be in my body. And
Ah,
I don't think I'm
yeah.
unique in that area, but for me, that's what it's all
No.
about.
That's a common problem in this day and age. Everybody's living in their head, and it's so important that we try to figure out how to connect our heads and our hearts, because the heart is where the power really is to be able to create the change we seek. And when we get so disconnected, it's like, almost like a steel plate between here and here. It's extremely difficult to break through that. So kudos to you that you had enough love for your sons that that was a catalyst for you to say, I got to do something different, I got to learn something different, I got to be something different. And then all the 12 step programs and things that you've gone through, I mean, all of those are just a lot of pieces to a bigger puzzle, because I know you've been doing a lot of research and a lot of work on yourself and a lot of work on forgiveness. Oh my goodness. You have any words of wisdom about forgiveness and how important that is?
I'll say a couple other things because it was more than just one thing with my sons, right?
Mhm.
Um, Me and a friend of mine, probably 25, 30 years ago, one Sunday afternoon, we're just talking. We must have named 50 people between the two of us that died directly from alcohol or drugs or inadvertently from a car accident pertaining to that. And it was just, I mean, in my own world, what I saw, never mind what's going on in the world, but period, right, over the years, was there was just so much suffering. And a lot of it was like, this is based, like, is an addiction is based on is spiritual, mental, physical.
Mhm.
It's a people drink, do drugs, and what they would have to shop, gamble, spend because they don't like how they feel.
That's
So
right.
if they start doing these things, and it's hard enough to stop kind of stuff when you're conscious of it. When you're unconscious, and these patterns are there, you drive down the street, my neighborhood, all you see is Amazon packets. Everybody steps constantly. It's like, I mean, those are lesser ways, but it's a way. Shopaholic, just so many things like that. But I
Yes.
always knew that I wanted to help people. I used to do prison commitments, and the prison would be all over me, like, because I had very similar temperament as a lot of the prisoners, right? I had a lot of
Mm,
problems with the law in my early 20s and stuff like that. They're
mhm.
like, they'd be at the break, they'd be hovering around me. How'd you do it? Like, why'd you here with us? This, that. I'm like, 'cause I stopped
Mhm.
drinking, doing drugs in my early 20s. I
Mm.
said, it's hard enough for me to control my emotional nature, but you put that stuff in me, it's like the hatch just opened and all these repressed emotions come out. Because alcohol is a great relaxer. But you
Yes.
drink that stuff, it's ridiculous.
Yep.
But I tell you one big thing is to answer your question about forgiveness, right? I did a Dr. Joe Dispenza workshop in I forget where it was now, someplace Cancun, Washington, and I was to the airport. I was so desperate. I was so sick, right? I was at the airport 5 hours before my flight
Mm.
because it was like 5 in the morning. I woke up at 1. I was afraid I wouldn't wake up, so I just went right to the airport, right? And it was like I was really desperate to heal my body, and it wasn't like conscious went there to do a forgiveness exercise, but that's exactly what happened, right? So the thing is,
Mm.
like, there's lots of things on breath work, right? Get you a deeper state so you can access memories. I have visions or whatever, right? Tony, I'm doing this breathwork thing. I'm at the front because I'm like I can't hear that well. So and everybody's laying down in side by side on their little blow up mats, and we're doing this breathwork meditation. It's probably like 90 minutes, and like probably 5 minutes before it ends, I can feel the beads of sweat rolling down my face, right? And I was doing this breath work. And because I had open heart surgery, and I was like, you know what? I was feeling pain in my chest, and I was like, I was at the point where like, you know what? If I die, I die. There was so much love in that room. I couldn't have thought, I'm thinking if I die, I couldn't think of a better place to die. Honestly, right? Next thing you know, a few minutes before the thing, it stops. I had this, I gotta get emotional.
Ooh.
I have this, I have a visual of my mother when she's like 5 years old on her tippy toes, looking into my father, looking into her father's casket.
Ooh.
Because back in the day, they used to wait family members in like the living room, right?
Yeah.
And I even I wish to say my relationship was different with my mother, but it's not. But the truth of the matter was, I saw this like 5 year old girl in like a white dress with pigtails, and my heart just broke for that little girl.
Aw.
And it was so obvious. It was pretty very emotional. And I was one of the
Wow.
last people to get up. When I get up, there was probably 10 women standing around me all in tears because
Oh.
they felt the love come out of me, and they saw that little girl
Mm.
because my mom's father died when she was like 5 years old. She
Wow.
was the youngest out of 7 or 8 kids, so she didn't have a prayer. And I had such ill feelings towards her my whole life. That's probably the
Mm.
only regret I have in my life is that I didn't learn this sooner and that I didn't have a better relationship with my mother. But
Mm.
so
Wow.
that was really forgiveness was huge on that one.
No doubt.
You know, I
That is
just
huge.
I just wish I could have swept her with my arms. You know,
Aw.
but it was just,
Wow.
and I really believe that was like almost 2 years ago, and I really that's out of all the workshops I've been in my whole life, all over the world, Peru, ayahuasca, therapy for 5 years, once a week, and I'm like, that was I really believe that really helped started my healing, and that's why I say spiritual, mental, physical. So my
Yes.
body's been riddled, but as you heal spiritually, your body's like playing catch up
Yep.
because no one's going to heal their body if they have unforgiveness and if they harbor those feelings. It's not congruent with love and homeostasis. It's like water and oil. They just won't
Yep.
work.
That's a fact. Wow. That is powerful. I thank you so much for sharing that specific experience because, that is such a beautiful example of, first of all, how we often have no idea what somebody else has been through that played a role in what we experienced with them. And that was huge. And then just that whole release of love and forgiveness that came from you. Oh my goodness, those kinds of experiences are huge triggers to help people heal. All of that, body, mind, spirit, for sure. So, wow. Again, I could sense that one for sure. So thank you for being willing to share that. And and the fact that you're doing better and better, you've been working so hard on healing yourself. I think you're a beautiful example that doesn't matter where you came from. There's
No,
still the potential for you to be able to be of service and find joy in doing it,
right.
because you certainly seem like a much happier guy now than I think you were at one point in time. And
Mm,
being able to live without all the abusive substances and stuff is a huge thing.
mm.
So don't want to keep you here all day, although I'm sure you have many more stories you could tell. So I'm just curious, is there is there, to kind of wrap this up, is there a specific piece of wisdom that you would like to share with other people who might listen to this?
Yeah, I know. It's just we all have our stuff in life and our trials and tribulations what we need to move through. And I really believe in my heart that if we can help one person, you know, another one of these little paragraphs would come out as I was walking my dogs out of AA literature. I'd be like, as we show through our strength and experience, we can help those that are 15, 20 years younger than us so they don't have to suffer needlessly. Because again, it's about helping others, right? But the point I'm making is, it's like we have our stuff, and what affects you may affect me differently, or vice versa. But everybody has stuff, and I think probably one of the most powerful books that I could probably suggest to me was Man's Search for Meaning by Dr. Viktor Frankl. Right?
Mm,
He was a doctor, and he was in the Nazi concentration camp, right?
yeah.
And he actually had to kill his own family in front
Oh,
of other German guards, put him in a wheelbarrow, and dump him into a pile of dead bodies.
oh,
Now that's pretty horrific. So you think of
that's,
stuff you've been through, but what he says was his grief was what they couldn't take from him was in his mind.
yeah.
And I guess the attitude that I was I don't know who said it, Eisenhower said in World War II, whatever it was he said like 7 times, no matter what's going on in your life, never give up.
Mm,
Because with his life, there's hope.
mm.
The only time you can't change or do anything if you're not breathing. Other than that, you always once you, as long as you're breathing, you still have hope and you still have a chance.
That's true.
So never give up.
Mm. I love that. That's a beautiful way to wrap this up for sure. And I just want to let you know that you obviously have a lot to share with people. I see you sharing with more and more people so they can hear your story, and you have the ability to be a beacon of hope for many. And as time goes on, you're going to discover more and more places, more and more ways that you can be that flame of hope. And I'm here helping to hold that vision with you, because I know you've got people to help, as long as you're still dancing on the planet. And
Yeah,
let's envision that you keep on dancing for a good long time. So thank you for being here with me today, John.
it's been great. Thank you so much, Ryan.
You're welcome. And to anybody who is interested in chatting further with John, just put something in the comments here. I'll help to connect you, because John's got a lot to share, and I know he's going to be helpful to a lot of people. So everybody have a incredibly blessed day, and we'll see you again soon.